This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Christopher Mitchell, 212th Trooper, and Silas 1610. As you know, partnership is a core theme of the Pokemon franchise. That's why I'm excited to announce that BetterHelp is the paid partner of this video. BetterHelp is a service dedicated to matching you with the right therapist for you and your needs, since starting therapy can be daunting. However, once you get over that hurdle, it can also be massively beneficial, helping you sort through stuff that's on your mind, and even stuff you didn't realize was bothering you, be it day-to-day life worries or something bigger. To put it in a Pokemon context, BetterHelp is like the episode Charizard Chills, where Ash helps Charizard sort through its issues with Damien and how that's affected its outlook and attitude since evolving. Now, think how much better things would have been for Charizard if it knew it had someone it could talk to about that stuff earlier on. Now there's a what-if idea right there. However, you don't have to ask what if when it comes to yourself, since as part of Mental Health Awareness Month and the goal to stop the stigma around mental health support and encourage more people to get the support they need, BetterHelp has made it more convenient than ever to connect with a credentialed therapist. All you need to do is click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/pickleddill. That's betterhelp.com/pickleddill with 2 Ds and 2 thumbs up from me, since by using my link you'll also get 10% off your first month of therapy. But with that said, let's get on to the story. We pick back up with our heroes on Route 9 as they continue their journey down the east coast of Galar. However, at this moment they've decided to stop and make camp so they might enjoy an early lunch of hearty curry, considering the winds off Circhester Bay make this one of the coldest places in Galar, second perhaps only to the Crown Tundra. Like usual, this is a team effort, with Bee prepping the ingredients, Raihan setting the table, and Ash being dispatched to gather firewood so they can get to cooking. Due to coming off of a mostly snowy section of the route, trees are few and far between, meaning Ash must look for dropped branches and sticks that have been blown around or carried off by Pokemon, with this in turn necessitating a detour from the beaten path. Heading into the tall grass while Pikachu scouts a small distance away, the raven-haired boy quickly finds a couple of sticks that will make good kindling, though before he starts heading back to camp, he hears what sounds like a whispered voice in the distance. Curious as to what this might be, Ash calls his best buddy back onto his shoulder then begins making his way deeper in, though when he gets close to where he thought he heard the sound, the only thing he sees is a truly massive Dottler, being maybe 3 times the size of an average one. Figuring such a Pokemon would make an amazing addition to his team, the young hero immediately prepares to battle it, though at the sight of Pikachu's cheeks flashing, the bug scuttles back a little, seemingly terrified. Shocked that a Pokemon would actively retreat from battle, Ash decides to check on it in case it's injured, with him crouching low and approaching slowly, all the while stating in a soothing tone that he's not gonna hurt it. However, it appears the feeling isn't mutual, as when he gets close, the bug type's geometric shell tumbles backwards, revealing itself to be made of paper mache, while from inside it springs a portly young man with a pink mohawk and face paint. Confused, the black-haired boy asks what this guy's doing, or at least he tries to, as before he can even get 2 words out, the stranger blows into a twisted pink vuvuzela with a puff of sleep powder exploding out the other end and causing Ash and Pikachu to become very sleepy. When he awakens, Ash is in a place he does not know. A rundown-looking shopfront nestled in a dark alleyway, with our hero having to squint to see the thin strip of sunlight permeating the alley's high walls. To make matters worse, he is not alone, as several men and women all in the same outfits as his kidnapper stand around him, with none looking particularly friendly as they stare down at him. Nonetheless, Ash does not back down, demanding to know who they are and what they think they're doing. Stepping up, a girl with pink hair and an undercut barks that their team yell, and they've brought him here so he can have a battle with their boss, the Spikemouth gym leader and undisputed master of the dark type, Piers, since they figure once he creams the so-called Alola League champ, it'll put their town back on the map. At once, all of Ash's hostility fades, instead being replaced with excitement, as he grins that he was on his way to challenge the gym anyway, so he'll happily take on this Pierce guy, his mind already racing to formulate strategies since Primeape should definitely give him a decent edge in this match. As if reading his thoughts, the grunt who kidnapped him speaks up, growling that he'll be holding onto that Primeape of his until after the battle, since he won't have any of that type advantage bollocks ruining things. Additionally, the kid's not allowed to call in any of his other reserves, and they don't have a power spot in Spikemouth, so don't even think about Dynamaxing. Confidently, Ash retorts that even with those handicaps, he'll still win, and while this earns him a scoff from the assembled team yell grunts, they do return Pikachu along with Cramorant and Raboot's Pokeballs to him. Pulling his starter into a hug, Ash questions if his buddy's alright, though when the electric rodent gives a squeak in the affirmative, the boy grins, telling him that it's time to get their next badge. Together, Trainer and Pokemon then follow the directions the grunts give, with it seeming this entire town is an alleyway, as they continue in a narrow straight line until finally they reach a battlefield lined by a chain-link fence, where a gaunt young man with long white and black hair greets them nonchalantly, as he muses that he must be the special challenger his fans promised to bring him. He's some kind of league champion, innit? From the way Piers is speaking, Ash gets the feeling that he was not privy to the kidnapping part of the plan, though all the same he still accepts the invitation to battle, stepping into the ring while the gym leader does likewise. All around them, the grunts from before gather to watch and film the match on their Rodom phones. Though paying this no mind, Ash chooses Cramorant while at the same moment Piers calls forth Scrafty. Seeing that he still has the advantage even without Primeape, Ash chooses to press the attack, having his friend lunge forward and drive a super effective peck right into the hoodlum Pokemon's stomach. However, here Piers proves why he is worthy of being called the master of the dark type, as without hesitation, he orders Scrafty to use payback, with the sinister salamander dealing massive damage as he rams an elbow into Cramorant's throat, causing it to cough and squawk as it waddles back to Ash's side of the field. In spite of things not going his way, Ash cannot help but smile, as just this opening exchange has got his heart racing, with him yelling out to Cramorant to use Stockpile, so that a moment later the Gulp Pokemon lets out a loud swallow and the familiar orb of power bulges in its throat. Knowing that one or even two such orbs probably won't be enough to take down Scrafty, Ash urges his friend to repeat the move twice more, so that soon it is a trio of spheres nestled in its esophagus, though it is here that Piers chooses to strike, having bided his time before calling for a Brick Break. At once, the fighting dark type springs into action, lunging forward and delivering a brutal chop to the same place it previously elbowed Cramorant, though now there are 3 orbs of power there, with this having been the gym leader's plan all along, as upon being hit, they detonate, causing the damage of the impending spit-up to instead be dealt to the water flying type. What's worse, this is done specifically to the inside of its already damaged throat, so that as Cramorant opens its bill wide to let out the plume of black smoke, it topples over backwards and lies unconscious on the battlefield. At the sight of this, the Team Yell grunts all cheer, calling Piers the king of battling among many other flattering names, though he hardly seems to hear them, as his eyes are still locked on Ash, as he instructs him to bring out his next Pokemon. Knowing he needs someone he can rely on to bring him back from this early loss, the boy calls forth Pikachu, with this causing the leader to laugh, as he reminisces how he once caught a little electric rat like that for his baby sister. Not that it matters, since he's still going to give Pikachu a clobbering. Cheeks flashing as if daring Piers to try, Pikachu turns his attention to Scrafty, and on Ash's command fires off a Thunderbolt. However, here the Dark Specialist shows off another bit of cunning trickery, having Scrafty lift up the rubberized skin it normally leaves baggy, and use this to deflect the electric attack right back at its source. But this is not the end of Pierce's plan, as making use of this moment of vulnerability, he next orders his Pokemon to close in and use Brick Break again, with it only being thanks to Ash's cry that Pikachu avoids sharing Cramorant's fate as he manifests an Iron Tail and clashes it against Scrafty's chop. Though to call this a clash might be misleading, as when the two moves collide, Pikachu's immediately breaks the stalemate, pushing the other attack off course and making the Dark Fighter stumble a little. Seeing the balance of power shifting back in his direction, Ash does not squander it, calling for a second Iron Tail, which this time is delivered to the top of Scrafty's head where it collides with the hoodlum Pokemon's crest. However, like the last attack, this is not really much of a contest, as the force of Pikachu's move is too much for the Unovan ruffian to handle, so that a moment later its face is sent smashing into the battlefield while its eyes turn to spirals. Unsurprisingly, this elicits a series of hisses and boos from the Team Yell grunts, though like Piers, Ash ignores them, instead watching as the gym leader next brings out a powerful looking Malamar, whose tentacles coil and undulate with psychic energy. Figuring it's best not to let Malamar get those tentacles on Pikachu, Ash tells his buddy to use Electro Web, with this binding the psychic squid, before rushing in for a quick attack now that it's safe. Though herein lies the boy's mistake, since against a tricky duo like Piers and Malamar, he and Pikachu are never truly safe. This is made clear a moment later when the overturning Pokemon reveals that it too knows payback, taking the electric rodent's hit, then striking back with a volley of jabs from its head tentacles that up until now Ash had thought were more like hair. This shocking turnabout tears a squeal of pain from Pikachu's lips as he is thrown back, though showing even more of its strength. Malamar next used those head tentacles to slice the Electro Web to ribbon with Psycho Cut, freeing it once again. Seeing they are now more or less back to square one with only injuries to show for it, Ash changes tack, ordering a Thunderbolt that Pikachu readily provides, though in contrast Piers keeps sticking with the same strategy as before, telling his friend to charge headlong into the attack, then use the pain for payback. Such a ruthless strategy catches Ash off guard, as he has seen very few trainers who would battle this way, though it cannot be denied that it is effective, as after tanking Thunderbolt, Malamar closes in and begins spinning at high speed, so that its main limb tentacles become a pair of flails that slap Pikachu repeatedly while the mouse is unable to resist. By now, Pikachu is starting to look rather tired, with this not being lost on Ash, who orders one last Thunderbolt before his buddy can sub out and rest. Unfortunately, only half of this statement is correct, as before Pikachu can fire the bolt of electricity, Malamar gets in one last attack, a Night Slash right between the rodent's eyes for a critical hit. This is too much for Pikachu, and so collapsing to the ground, he is ruled unable to battle, giving this round to Piers and his Pokemon. Rushing onto the field to scoop his starter up, Ash reassures him that he did a great job and that he should rest now, before calling out his final Pokemon in Raboot. Despite the size difference between him and Malamar, the little fire type shows no hesitation as it steps up, and on Ash's command unleashes a fiery wrath. As a dark specialist, Piers is familiar with this move, though has never actually seen it in person due to only Moltres supposedly being capable of using it. Though, to his shock, there it is right in front of him, with the gym leader needing to remind himself to call for a dodge, as part of him is transfixed and simply wants to watch the spectacle play out. Nonetheless, he does remember his duty to Malamar, though unfortunately it is too late, as half of the psychic squid is bathed in flames, leaving it weak and vulnerable enough that when Ash cries out for a follow-up flame charge, Malamar goes down. Though Raboot is at least kind enough to strike its other side so that it is cooked evenly. Grinning happily, Ash high-fives the rabbit Pokemon when it returns to him, as now they just need to beat Piers' last Pokemon, and then they can claim their badge, get Primate back, and find their friends. As it turns out, this Pokemon is Skuntank, with a flatulent forelegger hissing maliciously as it glowers at Raboot, who in turn smirks mockingly as though there is something in the poison dark type's appearance that it finds funny. This only further enrages the skunk Pokemon, so when Piers calls for a Venoshock, it expels a torrent of purple gas right at Raboot. However, being faster and more agile, the wascally Wabbit ducks underneath this burst and closes in to slap each of Skuntank's cheeks with one of its feet for a devious double kick, before bounding back and pulling its collar down to stick its tongue out. As anticipated, this only stokes the flames of Skuntank's ire, though when Ash attempts to capitalize on this with a flame charge, Piers does something unexpected by telling his poisonous pal to use Sucker Punch. At once, the skunk Pokemon vanishes, with the boy and his bunny being surprised that it can move so fast, though this is nothing to the surprise they get when Skuntank reappears right behind Raboot and socks in the back of the head with one of its claws. Letting out a pained squeal, the Firestar stumbles forward while clutching the back of its head, and making the most of this, Piers follows up with a snarl that blasts it in the back and brings it to its knees. Seeing a chance for victory, the Dark Specialist orders a second Venoshock, though thinking fast, Ash tells Raboot to get away with Flame Charge. However, here's something no one could have seen coming occurs, as when the gas reaches the place the Firestar just was, small sparks crackle into life, with Ash figuring this must mean the Venoshock gas is flammable, though apparently it requires more than just the leftover heat from Flame Charge to set it off. This gives the young Cantonian an idea, a very risky idea, since if this goes wrong, Raboot will be the one to pay the price. However, by the same token, he has faith in his friend and its abilities, so if anyone can pull this plan off, it's the Fire type, with him flashing it a grin and ordering it to double back and cross the stream of Venoshock with Flame Charge as fast as it can. Though Raboot doesn't know why its trainer wants this, it likes the sound of as fast as it can, and so circles back at high speed with its now blazing red eyes locked firmly on the gout of poison gas. In contrast, Piers does know, and so has Skuntank turned to face the rabbit head-on, since while he can't stop Ash from doing what he plans to, he can maximize the damage Raboot takes as a result while minimizing Skuntank's by setting off the explosion as far away from the poison dark type as possible. Unfortunately for him, Ash had been very specific about crossing the line, and not wanting to disappoint the boy, Raboot takes a running leap just before it's about to hit the vapor trail, so that it soars overhead and lands beside it instead. Then, showing just how fast it is on its feet, it pivots and starts running again, crossing right in front of Skuntank's nose. At once, the gas ignites, creating a loud and powerful explosion that rocks the battlefield, with Ash's cry to disengage Flame Charge barely being audible above the noise. Luckily, the Firestarter has big ears, with it therefore being able to end its fiery move before the stream of explosive gas traces back to it. However, the same cannot be said for Skuntank, who is standing at ground zero, with a line of flame shooting back into the hole in its tail that the gas originated from, and then exploding inside it with an earth-shattering kaboom. Subsequently, it is no great shock when the skunk Pokemon slumps to the ground unconscious, though what follows is, as suddenly Skuntank's tail opens wide again, and a jet of pressurized flaming gas shoots out and strikes Raboot for some surprise damage which Piers explains is his Pokemon's ability Aftermath. Nonetheless, the Fire Rabbit is able to withstand this, making Ash the winner as he runs onto the pitch to hug his friend and celebrate the end of this arduous gym battle. However, this just earns him a strange look from Piers, who asks what he thinks he's doing as he recalls Skuntank and brings out a fourth Pokemon, an Obstagoon. In a turn of bafflement, Ash protests that he thought this was a 3v3, though this just heightens the gym leader's confusion, as he states that he never said that, though to set the record straight, Spikemouth's a 4 Pokemon gym. At once, Ash feels his heart sinking as he protests that he only has 3 Pokemon with him. Though in an aloof tone, Piers retorts that he doesn't see how that's his problem, since the kid should have prepared better. By now, Ash is convinced that the long-haired man didn't orchestrate his kidnapping, nor does he know anything about Primate being taken off him. Though figuring such things can be discussed later, he instead tells Rabbit to go on the attack with Double Kick. Letting out a fierce trill, the Rabbit Pokemon charges forward and aims a flying kick at Obstagoon, trusting that a few of these quite-effective hits should be able to net it and Ash the win. Though this is perhaps overly optimistic, as on Piers' cry the blocking Pokemon shows why it is classified this way, bringing its arms up and across to block the attack, and then letting out a roar so palpable the sound waves are a deep visible purple. Due to being at the origin point of this auditory attack, Rabbit is blown back, with there being something wobbly about its posture when it gets back up. Recognizing Ash's unspoken question, the Dark Specialist explains that what his partner just used is called Obstruct, and its special ability is that it massively damages the opponent's defensive capabilities. So next turn, Obstagoon's gonna knock Raboot out. While a little odd that Piers would openly tell him his strategy, Ash thanks him for the tip, grinning that in that case, his fiery buddy will just have to knock the big weasel out in one blow before it gets the chance. To this end, he orders a second double kick with everything Raboot has, and figuring blocking moves like Obstruct can't be used twice in a row, the Rabbit Pokemon runs in to carry out its orders. However, there is one thing that Ash and Raboot had failed to consider, that Obstagoon might have 2 separate blocking moves, as when the starter gets close, Piers instructs his friend to use Counter. At once, the otherwise stationary normal Dark type springs into action, leaping over the kicks, and then delivering a fierce knee drop right onto the Rabbit's head. Unfortunately, since each of its knees are roughly the size of Raboot's skull, the fire type is promptly flattened, so that as Obstagoon gets back up and dusts itself off, Ash's last hope lies unconscious in a crater, just as Piers had said. Recalling it with his thanks, the young Cantonian then prepares to concede the match, though just as he opens his mouth to do so, a familiar bellow rings out through the narrow battlefield. Looking up, Ash spots what he at first thinks is a bundle of rags falling from the roof of one of the neighboring buildings, though when it lands with an equally familiar thump while pink energy coats its fists, his face splits into a wide grin as he cheers it's the Grimmsnarl from Glimwood Tangle. Curiously, Piers asks if this is to be his 4th Pokemon, and when the Fairy Dark-type nods its agreement, Ash's smile only grows, with him eagerly telling it that together they can win for sure. Looking intrigued by this unconventional pair, the gym leader retorts that he and Obstagoon may have something to say about that, as for once he actually goes on the offensive right off the bat, calling for a throat chop. Matching this energy, Ash orders a Spirit Break, with a punch and chop colliding, though when this ends in a stalemate, the pair of behemoths repeat their moves, seemingly intent on knowing which of them is physically stronger. Unfortunately, this too is inconclusive, though when Grimmsnarl goes for its 3rd pass, Piers has Obstagoon switch to Obstruct, seeing it cross its arms and catch the punch before letting out another of those purple hazy screams. Smirking confidently, the Dark Specialist states that this should settle things then, since now Grimmsnarl won't be able to endure his mate's hits, though in response the Bulker Pokemon uses the move of the same name, returning about half of the defensive power Obstagoon just stole from it, while also enhancing its own attack power by an equal amount, evening things back out. Clearly this impresses even the aloof Piers, with him ordering a Shadow Claw that strikes true, even if it is not very effective. Though this is not the point, as now that it's got its claws into it, Obstagoon pushes its foe back into the chain link fence and begins laying into it with its other hand. This does not look good for Ash and Grimmsnarl, but thinking fast, the Ravenhead boy has his new friend use Spirit Break while they're close together, resulting in the Dark Fairy driving double punches into the blocking Pokemon's sides for super effective damage that staggers back slightly. Having grown a bit more animated at this awesome clash of titans, Piers urges his partner to get back in there and keep Grimmsnarl pinned, though when it tries, Ash's friend employs its long strands of hair, wrapping them around the top of the fence and using them to launch itself up, so that Shadow Claw rattles against the chain links instead. However, this is not the end, as when Grimmsnarl assumes its place atop the fence, it strikes a wind-up pose that Ash knows well from his time in Alola, and so with a broad smile on his face, he calls for a Darkest Lariat. Hearing and obeying, the Bulker Pokemon leaps from its position as though it was the post of a wrestling ring, and delivers a bone-crushing clothesline down to Obstagoon. For a moment, the boy is sure that this is the end, though showing more of that indomitable will, Obstagoon refuses to go down for the count, instead kicking Grimmsnarl off it and rising back to its feet for round 2. Having to respect his opponent's guts, Ash calls for another Spirit Break, with Piers in turn calling for Obstruct, as this time the Dark Fairy type will be weakened enough that one good throat chop will finish it off. However, it seems Ash has other plans, as employing some of the trickery he has observed Piers use throughout the match, he tells Grimmsnarl to use that hair of its to break the block, something the Forest Guardian is happy to do, as thrusting its hair out in front of it, it lashes the ends around Obstagoon's wrists and begins pulling them apart. While it cannot move them much, since the blocking Pokemon has considerable strength, the boost from Bulk Up is enough to create a small opening, with this being enough for Grimmsnarl to land one good hit that sends Obstagoon flying into the back wall of the alley. This time, everyone knows that the battle is over, though even still Piers is reluctant to call it, letting out a big sigh before he despondently declares his partner unable to battle. Such a strong reaction from a gym leader surprises Ash, since he'd have thought they'd all be used to losing since it's part of the job, though when he steps forward to ask the man what's wrong, Piers explains that this was meant to be his chance to save his home, but now the world has seen him fail, so even fewer people will come here than before and Spikemouth will be doomed for sure. Suddenly feeling guilty for winning, our young hero attempts to apologize or suggest a way he can make this right, though before he can, a couple of the Team Yell Grunts call out to Piers, telling him to take a look at this. They then project their Rotom phones onto the back wall, where Ash and Piers see an outpouring of positive comments from the people watching the live stream, as they praise both of them as battlers, with several dozen claiming they want to come visit, either to see the place where this awesome match took place, or to challenge the gym themselves. Seeing this, tears well in Piers' eyes, as he sighs that it's a relief, since he's always been pretty pants as a gym leader, what with him refusing to move to a power spot and not setting up some massive arena to accommodate the corporatization of modern Pokemon battles. But now, just maybe, there's hope that his gym in his hometown can survive, and he's got Ash to thank for it. Rubbing the back of his head, the young Cantonian tells him not to sweat it, while all the grunts who were previously so hostile swarm him to give their thanks too. As part of this, Primeape's ball is returned to him as promised, along with Pikachu, Cramorant, and Rabbit all being given potions to help recover their strength after the big battle. However, the best gift of all comes from Piers himself, who tells everyone else to quiet down before presenting his challenger with maybe the most well-earned Dark Badge ever. At this announcement, thunderous applause ring out through Spikemouth, but when Ash turns back to Grimmsnarl, since it deserves part of the credit too, he finds the Bulk Up Pokemon gone, having apparently vanished amidst the crush of bodies. Thoughtfully, Ash wonders if they'll ever meet again, though now is not the time for such things, as another reunion is about to take place, with Bea and Raihan pushing their way to the front of the crowd as they say that it's good to see him safe and in one piece. A little shocked, Ash asks when they got here, to which Raihan explains that when he didn't come back for lunch they got worried and went looking for him, though it wasn't until he went on social media to put a call out that he saw the announcement of his battle with Piers. Laughing heartily, Ash teases that maybe it's a good thing that he's always on his phone then, though no worries, since he got an awesome battle and a badge out of the experience. In response to this, the Dragon Master adopts a serious expression, and for a moment Ash worries that he's really offended his friend, though when Raihan speaks, it is in his gym leader voice, as he states that this poses an interesting question then. Ash only has 2 badges left to get, and they're both from gyms he's already visited, so would he like to double back to Stow on side and challenge Alistair next, or is it time for their rematch? And that's where we'll leave things. Who will Ash choose as his penultimate gym opponent? What impact will today's battle have on Spikemouth? And will our hero ever see Grimmsnarl again? Find out as the journey continues.